Everyone just immediately froze and looked down, and someone said, yelled, "He's got a gun."
Residents, store owners, they took people into their premises to shield them.
Remembering the victims of the Danforth shooting and honoring those who stepped up to help in the midst of the chaos. Well, on a night a lot like tonight, 1 year ago, a man armed with a handgun opened fire on people enjoying the patios and restaurants along the Danforth. 2 people died in that rampage. 13 others were injured. Natalie Nanowski was a reporter on the scene that night. She joins us now live from the Alexander the Great Parkette. So, Natalie, that's where a vigil will soon get underway tonight.
Yeah, that's it, Mike. And people are already coming to lay flowers. There's cards of hope that are tied to the trees that say things like "Toronto Strong." Now, at this little parkette, if you can remember, this was one of the original sites of a memorial. It was also exactly where the shooting started. So initially, the days after that tragic event, people came here to grieve. Tonight, though, Mike, they're coming with a little bit of a different feeling. They're coming with a sense of resilience and community and strength. Now, I spoke with one woman earlier, and she told me that she remembers this corner of Danforth and Logan very well because on that night, July 22nd, she was next door at the restaurant just nearby celebrating her birthday with her family, and her party got a little bit held up, and she can't be more thankful for that now.
If my birthday cake had been served on time, my entire family would have been walking out of the restaurant.
And right into the shooter's path. Jody Steinhauer was having dinner with her fiancé Lori, her parents, and children at Christina's restaurant when they heard gunshots.
Everyone just immediately froze and looked down, and someone said, yelled, "He's got a gun." And then we heard a woman screaming. And before I turned around, Lori had gone out onto the street and yelled, "She's been shot, clear the deck." So we brought her into the front of Christina's and lay her on the bench.
That woman was one of 13 injured when gunman Faisal Hussein opened fire at the corner of Logan and Danforth. Then he made his way west, targeting diners, before shooting himself. 10-year-old Juliana Kozis was killed that night. So was Quinn Fallon's sister, Reese. She had just graduated from high school.
Every day I'll wake up and hope that it's a nightmare, and then I just realize that she's gone. I would say she's funny, she was sassy, she was really outgoing, she was just really fun to be around.
And we remember.
The community has spent the last year healing. Yesterday, a memorial was held for the victims and survivors. Danielle Kane ran out to help that night when a bullet hit her spine, paralyzing her.
Without a doubt, been the most challenging year in my life. But I mean, I've had the wonderful support of my partner, Jerry, and I'm fighting through it. I just feel so comforted knowing that everyone is behind us, and it has been a good way to kind of mark the anniversary.
Kevin Price's daughter has recovered from being shot in the hip. Now his family is on a mission.
The fact that there are 1 million handguns that are legally allowed to be owned in this country seems ridiculous to us.
Steinhauer feels the same way.
But I think it really taught Torontonians and anybody anywhere, you really just have to kind of be aware and be grateful, because you can't stop something like that from happening.
So both Jody and Kevin say that today's anniversary is reviewing more calls for gun control, especially on handguns. They say what happened that night has forever changed their lives. Both of them say that they're a little bit more wary when they go to crowded situations. And Jody told me that she has not yet returned to the Danforth, but plans to at some point. Now tonight, Mike, the candlelight vigil is expected to take place and start at sunset.
Okay, Natalie, thank you. Well, Toronto Paramedic Services Chief Commander Peter Rotolo was on the scene of the shooting, helping to organize the emergency response to the attack. He recently told Dwight Drummond how that night was different from other high-profile emergencies he's attended.
First thing I said, not again. The reason why I said that, because I was involved also in the Yonge Street incident, and to
The
come back,
van attack.
the van attack. So when I heard this, I go, no, not again.
Yeah.
So it was, I wasn't. The reaction was sort of like, wow.
You get here.
I get here and it's chaos, but it's an organized chaos. Everybody is doing the best they can for everybody. You can appreciate we have a large area of street to cover, and 911 calls were coming in from different addresses along the street.
And everybody that's hearing the shots, they're calling.
They're calling in. They have patients that they're there. They're wondering what's going on. But I think what was sort of, from my perspective, while I'm trying to organize the crews, the community, they are the true first responders. No one ran away. They were all dealing with people. They were helping people every step of the way.
Because that's the old saying. They say, the public runs away from these things, whereas emergency service personnel, they run towards it. But in this
Correct.
instance, people are here
They
and helping.
didn't run away. Everybody was helping, and which was, from a community perspective, it's a warm Sunday night. Families are out. They all ran to help, and the people that needed the help, whether they were injured or just emotionally upset, the community was there for them.
Is that one of the things that sticks in your mind from that night as you think about what happened? Is that one of the main things you'll remember from that?
It does, and you know what? It does, and I'm also very proud of my crews. When the emergency services were responding, we still had what we call an active shooter. We didn't know if we had 1, 2, or more. And so I have to be proud of my crews. I think they did a fantastic job. My supervisory personnel, communications staff, they all reacted the way I would like them to react.
You were on the front line for the van attack. We mentioned that. The Danzig shooting back in 2012. What was different about what took place here than those incidents?
The van attack was in the street. The Danzig shooting was in one location, basically. Mm-hmm. Here we had to go find people. Residents, store owners, they took people into their premises to shield them from the shooter. And that's where all three emergency services work together. The police were securing the scene, and you trust that they're doing a good job, and they did. They did a fantastic job. Mm-hmm. The fire is there to assist us in the number of patients. So the emergency services really worked well together as a team. And I think the City of Toronto and the citizens of Toronto, they got to understand and appreciate that, they've got an excellent emergency services team here, because we all do our jobs, and it shows.
After the police tape comes down, after the emergency services leave, the media leaves, how does a community heal from something as tragic as that?
I think they have to go on, and soon after the shootings, we had the taste of the Danforth.
Yes, and that was important because some people were saying, oh, maybe we shouldn't do it this year. No. And others was like, no, we can't let these things stop us.
I like to use the example of, you fall off your bike, what do? You get back on. And the community did that. And the Taste of Danforth was a perfect example of the community coming back together and saying, you know what, we're not going to let anybody stop us. We're going to continue and flourish in our community. And they did that.
You've seen this years throughout your career. Can a family ever truly recover after losing a loved one in a tragedy like that?
I think it's hard. But again, I think there's enough community support, and they have to seek that community support, whether it's their family doctor, professional help, or the family members. But you have to continue forward, because if you don't, you let that incident defeat you, and you don't want to be defeated.
What are you thinking about on this anniversary, Peter?
To me, it's knowing that the community has come together. Mm-hmm. And I think for us as emergency responders is knowing that we did our job the best we could at the time, and that the community, they appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.
Well, thank you.
And what you've been doing for us for well over 4 decades now. Any chance of retirement soon, Peter?
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah, let the kids take over.
Yeah.
Congratulations
okay.
and thank you.
Thanks,
thank you for your time.
Thanks.
We will have more on today's 1-year anniversary coming up. We'll talk more with Danielle Kane, who ran outside to help and was herself shot. We'll hear about her path to recovery. Plus, I talked to one Danforth restaurateur about how he kept his patrons safe and then made the decision to go outside to help.
Everybody ran, of course, to the back, not knowing what's going on, knowing that we was somebody shooting, but at that point we didn't know which way he was going. It's that way, this way, we had no idea.
When did things sink in for you? When did you realize the enormity of what had happened?
The next day. These things don't happen in Canada. It happens someplace else and we see it on the news, not on the Danforth.
The police crackdown on the cafe chain of cannabis stores continues. Despite physical barriers being in the way, the shops continue to bring in business, although now they're facing charges for selling a now legal drug in an illegal way on the sidewalk. Ali Chasson joins us live from one of those locations on Fort York. So, Ali, you spoke to some of those customers today.
That's right, and they are loyal customers. So loyal that they are buying illegal weed out in the open. Why? Because they say it's still cheaper and more accessible. So accessible, here's an example. The government has 5 legal pot shops, and they're competing with 4 of these cafes. Have a listen. Scoring in Toronto has really come full circle. Cafe has taken to selling on the sidewalks after the city changed the locks, put up steel doors, and most recently, cement blocks.
Service to the clientele is awesome. You're allowed to look at the merchandise, you're allowed to see it.
Some of the customers lined up outside said the legal stores are just not for them.
When I go to the government store, I can't see anything. So, you know, hats off to all the people at Cafe.
The few open locations in Toronto that I've visited, the staff there are extremely uneducated about the product. And the way the system works, number one, it's too expensive.
Flagging that there are too many barriers in the legal market.
Medicinal system. There's way too many barriers. These people help people with medical conditions like anxiety, like pain disorders. They're saying there's, the illegal market, the illegal market. These were people who have been supplying patients for years.
Cafe is making millions while it's their employees peddling on the sidewalk. They're getting in trouble with the cops.
We now have 18 people that have been charged under cannabis-related offenses.
Among them, a 16-year-old kid who allegedly bought weed from Cafe walked to the back of the line to resell it to customers. Other than that, police say they've arrested the people selling, not buying. But that can change.
Purchasing these items on the street, you are supporting organized crime. It is illegal and you can be charged and arrested.
Now, I want to know why Toronto police are being used in such a heavy-handed manner to enforce what is fundamentally a licensing issue. This is a bylaw matter, and they're out there fighting the war on drugs all over again.
Anything that happens outside of the establishment always is going to be police enforcing. Anything that takes place inside the dispensary is something that the City of Toronto will look after.
Toronto police wouldn't comment on any ongoing probe into the Cafe organization, but they did say that this is part of a larger investigation. I'll send it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Ali. You can also read our investigation into 2 of the men who helped start Cafe. They include a notorious counterfeiter and a Lamborghini driving ex-wrestling champ. You can find those exclusive details at cbc.ca/Toronto.
We went into the pool area, observed the males face down, floating in the pool. It's myself and the other officers. We looked at each other and it was kind of joint decision just by looking at each other that had to be made. That's it, we're going in.
A scary situation here on Friday when officers dove into this pool to try and save 2 men. Coming up, we hear from them and from city officials on how to stay safe around the water this summer.
If your commute home takes you along Richmond, you might want to find an alternative for the next year or so. As of today, bike and car lanes are reduced while crews replace a 143-year-old water main. The work will be done in 2 phases. Now, in phase 1, Richmond from Spadina to Bathurst will be reduced to 1 shared lane for both vehicles and bicycles. Phase 2 will start in December and extend into next summer, affecting Richmond from York Street to Spadina. Colette Kennedy's here with the first look at the forecast. I got to say, Colette, as much as I like the summer weather, it's actually nice to have a day where you can go outside and the humidity isn't just oppressive.
Yeah, it's a big change, right, from where we were. It feels completely different. It's going to feel completely different for sleeping tonight as well. If you want to turn off the air conditioner, or maybe you already have, and just kind of enjoy those temperatures dropping down overnight tonight into the lower teens for a change. Even last night, I mean, it wasn't bad, but it was 19 degrees for the overnight low. So we're finding temperatures coming down, but also that humidity, of course, coming down a little bit. And I can illustrate that here with here are our current readings, low 20s. That's what we're talking about, kind of more spring-like in terms of how it feels. We're a few degrees below seasonal values and a little humidity. So you can add a few degrees, but there's not a lot. And it's actually going to be pulling back a bit for a few days before it builds again. We'll talk about when it's going to build later on in the show. Let's just deal with what's happening right now. We had some just isolated storms. I say storms because there are a few lightning strikes pop up earlier. They become a little more widespread towards Vaughan, up towards Barrie. In fact, Hamilton, you just had Douse go through there as well. So a very heavy downpour, short-lived though, and then it kind of moves out of the area. Barrie, again, through that region, seeing that around Newmarket as well. Some wet conditions there. So some of these scattered storms, seeing these into the early evening hours here, and then these are going to taper off in the next hour or two. And then we're looking at clear skies overnight tonight. Lots of sunshine through the day tomorrow. Southwestern Ontario could see a few showers, or to the east of the GTA. But otherwise, 26 with that sun. As for when that humidity is going to build, yes, I'll tell you about that, Mike, coming up.
Okay, thanks, Colette.
No problem.
An air ambulance rushed a woman to hospital after she was run over by a tractor at an equestrian center just east of Newmarket. The accident happened at the Royal Canadian Riding Academy over the lunch hour. York Regional Police say the woman was driving the tractor when she fell off and was run over by the vehicle. The air ambulance spokesperson says they flew the woman to hospital in critical condition. The Labour Ministry is now investigating. Well, 47 people have died this year as a result of drownings in Ontario, 21 this month alone. Now, as Drowning Prevention Week begins, officials are trying to ensure water safety is top of mind. Taylor Simmons spoke to an officer who helped rescue 2 men from a pool just last week.
We pulled up on the other side of the brush and ran across.
It was about 6:30 Friday when Officer Arsenault and his partner received a call for 2 men face down in this pool at a Scarborough motel.
We looked at each other and it was kind of joint decision just by looking at each other that had to be made. That's it, we're going in.
They took off their vests and belts, jumping in with their heavy boots and uniforms.
The gentleman that I went in for was at the bottom, so bottom of the deep end. I was able to grab his arm and just kind of pull him to the shallow side.
The officers began CPR before paramedics arrived.
A few minutes later, when you continue to do that and then you find out that there's a pulse back, it's quite a moment, you know.
Sunnybrook Hospital couldn't tell us how the victims are doing, but the officers may have avoided another drowning tragedy this summer, something seen too often already. In just the last month, a 33-year-old mother in Pickering died trying to save her son. An 89-year-old man was found dead in a pool in Burlington, and a 4-year-old girl is now recovering after she was found in an Oakville pool. Her 79-year-old grandmother in the pool with her didn't make it. In many of these cases, officials say something could have been done.
This might be an example of the life jacket that might be too loose for him.
The mayor of Mississauga held an event for Drowning Prevention Week at a local pool today.
Safety is important because you can save a life.
Wearing a life jacket, keeping a close eye on young kids, and keeping a piece of life-saving equipment nearby can make all the difference.
We try and focus on prevention at a time when people are most likely to be near the water, with the hope that they will pause and realize that almost all drownings are preventable.
Squeeze and then go breath, breath.
But when a crisis does arise, Arsenault says, be prepared.
Get your CPR certificates, not just police officers or emergency personnel, family members, friends. Get your get your certificate. Take a class, take a course, whatever you got to do, because it works.
Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
Parents across the country are sounding the alarm. Transport Canada has launched a defect investigation after receiving almost 100 complaints over frayed straps on Evenflow child car seats. I'm Kelda Yoon. Coming up, I'll tell you what Evenflow says is to blame and why parents aren't buying it.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Premier Ford's former chief of staff has dropped the libel lawsuit he launched last month against a former PC legislator. A lawyer for Dean French confirming the suit launched against Randy Hillier, who is now an independent MPP, has been dropped. French filed the suit back in June before he resigned from his job in Ford's office. He alleged that shortly after Hillier was kicked out of the Tory caucus, he began a libelous and defamatory campaign against him. French's lawyer says that since Hillier has deleted the tweets and French is no longer involved in government, there was little point in carrying on the litigation. Well, parents across the country are once again raising concerns about straps on their even flow childcare seats fraying. Now, Transport Canada is now launching an investigation after receiving almost 100 complaints. As Kelda Yoon tells us, this is a problem that has been happening for at least 5 years.
I mean, I didn't think it was something that could happen.
This is the replacement seat Evenflow sent Katie Thomas after the Cambridge mother complained of damage to the straps of her son's Symphony model car seat.
My husband noticed that the straps were twisted, and so he pulled them all the way out so that he could untwist them. And that's when he noticed that it was frayed on one side. And so he checked the other side, and it was frayed there too. What would have happened if we had been in an accident?
The straps are part of the seat's harness, which helps to keep the child secured and the seat mounted to the vehicle. Thomas was planning on using the replacement until she heard Transport Canada is investigating 3 different models, including hers. The problem isn't new. This is a report CBC News did back in 2014 when an Ontario father discovered the harness of his daughter's Evenflow Symphony seat had been severed. The company's explanation at the time? Rodents. And that hasn't changed. Thomas got the same response.
So to have everybody with the same damage on the same part of the car seat and no damage anywhere else and no damage anywhere else in their car or evidence of rodents, it's ridiculous.
Since posting about the investigation on its Facebook page, Transport Canada has received over 2,000 comments, including many from parents who say they have contacted Evenflow about frayed straps in the past, and we're told they have rodents too.
I was amazed at how many people had the same problem.
Gia Maheshwari is a Winnipeg mother. She discovered the straps of her son's Evenflow Symphony car seat were fraying in January last year. Like Thomas, she sent photos to the company, and they told her its technicians determined it to be small animal damage.
If it was a rodent, why would it go and chew only the straps on the car seat? I would definitely see damage on the cover, on the seat covers, or anywhere else, or I might even find like animal droppings, right?
Pamela Fuseli is a Toronto-based safety expert. She says rodent damage to child car seats is uncommon, but has happened.
It's a very attractive place for rodents and mice. It's full of crumbs and foam.
But regardless of what caused the fraying, she says there's no doubt it could put a child in danger.
That's definitely a tear in the webbing. As soon as you've compromised, the strength of that webbing, then you are potentially in a dangerous situation.
And no recall has yet been issued. In its response to CBC News, Evenflow says the root cause is still being assessed by Transport Canada and its own technicians, and that in the meantime, no defects have been found. Kelder Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
I'm Natalie Danowski. This parkette at Danforth and Logan was the site of one of the original memorials after the Danforth shooting. Tonight, there'll be a vigil here, and the message is all about moving forward. I'll have more coming up.
We were sitting actually out on the patio, and we heard shots, so we went inside, and then he came in the restaurant, he shot the girl right in front of me.
I saw someone with a gun, holding a gun up. It's in black, I'm pretty sure. And then I saw someone just drop to the floor.
I can tell you right now that as a result of this, approximately 15 people have been hit with gunfire.
A look at some of the chilling moments that took place on the Danforth 1 year ago. Tonight, the city is remembering the victims of that shooting. In just a couple of hours, a vigil will take place on the Danforth. Our Natalie Nanowski joins us live again from Alexander the Great Parkette, right at Danforth and Logan. So, Natalie, this focus tonight is on moving forward.
That's just it, Mike. There were so many ceremonies and vigils that took place at this park following that tragic night. But tonight, the message is going to be resilience and strength. Now, I'm with the local councillor here, Councillor Paula Frutcher. We were talking earlier, Paula, just about how we both remember that night, how we were both here that night looking at the chaos. It's been a year since then. Do you think that tonight having the vigil here is going to really offer people that final step that they need to find closure?
Well, I hope it will do that. You know, a year is such an important time. It's a milestone. In any major tragedy, everyone remembers the year. So the families are really focused on that year. The community realizes it's a year since this unthinkable tragedy happened on the Danforth. So coming together tonight in this space is pretty important.
Now, I was speaking to a few people over the weekend, and they were saying how, although it was a tragedy, it was awful, it really did bring people together, and people started talking to each other again.
Well, this community is a pretty together community. It's Riverdale, it's the Danforth, and it's a community that's full of love and compassion already. So I think the outpouring of love that's come from everybody here to the families of the two young women that were killed and all of the victims is really something. But as well, people have given their love to the Danforth. They've come to the Danforth. They know that Danforth Strong is an important symbol and that the Danforth needs to remain the Danforth. So they've supported the Danforth. They've shopped and come here to eat and stroll on the Danforth, which I think is such a tribute to this great street.
And what do you think the message is tonight? I spoke about resilience and strength, but what's the message you want Toronto and the rest of Canada to know?
Well, I think the Danforth Strong is real. It's been a year. We're still standing strong. We're standing strong behind the families and those whose lives have been changed forever by this. And we're standing strong as a community. There's an interfaith choir that came together for this very weekend and today, and their song was I Choose Love. And I think that's what this community always chooses.
Perfect. Thank you, Paula. That's a great message. I choose love. Mike, now the candlelight vigil is going to take place tonight at sunset. That's going to be starting at about 8:51. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. And for anyone who can't make it, we'll have highlights tonight at 11. Well, Danielle Kane and her boyfriend were in a restaurant on the Danforth 1 year ago tonight. When she heard the gunshots, the nursing student ran outside to help, only to find herself shot by one of his bullets. She is now paralyzed from the waist down. The National's Andrew Chang spoke with the two to talk about returning to the scene and how day-to-day life has changed.
In the past, you wake up in the morning, you get out of bed, and then you start your day. I can't get out of bed right away. Like, I need to take time for my pain medication to kick in. When I do finally get a day where my pain is controlled and we go out, it's hard for me, honestly, it's hard for me to see all the other able-bodied young people and just seeing how freely they move through the world, you know? And it reminds me of like what was taken away from me. And it's hard. When I have those thoughts, I kind of need to like go home and into a private space where I can kind of digest those thoughts and I guess focus on the fact that I'm so lucky to be here still.
Have you been back to the Danforth?
It was St. Patrick's Day. We were kind of partying with friends at a pub. It was a good paying day, and we had a few drinks at a pub, and we were going home, dropping people off, and we had just happened to pass by the Danforth just to see again how close the shooter was to me, just how narrow that street is. I'm again reminded of how lucky I am to be alive, because I couldn't have been closer, could not have been closer to him. So
that was the only time you've been back?
That was the only time I've been back, and yeah, so it was surprising to me. I thought I might feel afraid, but instead I feel stronger. I'm like, I came from there and I was broken, and I was bleeding and broken there, and now I've been put together and I'm on the path to recovery.
You can see more of that interview online. Just head to cbc.ca/thenational. Well, Danielle wasn't alone in running out to offer help. I spoke today with longtime restaurant owner Chris Christodoulou. Now, when he first heard the shots last year, his first reaction was to usher customers on his patio to a safe place at the back of his restaurant. His second reaction was to go and investigate the commotion to see what could be done to help. I asked him what he remembered from 1 year ago.
A beautiful Sunday night. We had a full patio, and all of a sudden we started hearing this noise. Sounded like a gunshot, but we didn't really know what it was until we saw people running, and they were saying somebody's shooting, somebody's shooting. So immediately we got everybody on from the patio in the front section to the very back of the restaurant. Then I started walking, going west to the parquet at the Alexandros Square. And that's when I started seeing all these victims on the ground. It looked pretty well like a war zone. And it was just overwhelming. I said it a million times, I'm gonna say it one more time. It was very, I was so surprised to see all these people still there attending to the people, the wounded. Usually on a situation like that, you would expect to see no one.
Why do you think people wanted to stay?
I mean, it's so hard to, at that moment when it happens, you either don't realize the danger, or because we want, like a human, we want to help, we want to be able to give them a hand. They were stranded on the floor, bleeding, having such a unforgettable experience. It's just overwhelming for...
When did you realize the enormity of what had happened?
The next day. We stayed up, we stayed late. Of course, the street was evacuated. We still stayed in the restaurant, and we're just sitting there and just trying to digest what happened. On Monday, around 6 o'clock in the afternoon, the police allowed us to open our businesses. I was very eager to open, not for the money, but to get the Danforth back to life and show that we are here, we're not going anywhere, we are strong, like the sign said, Danforth is strong, support each other. And again, unbelievable how many people came. And they specifically came to show their support to us, to the businesses, to the people that lost their lives, to the families that they mourn for them. And it was overwhelming, and we were very surprised and appreciative.
Here we are a year later, life goes on, you're renovating the business. How has the street changed, or has it changed in that year?
In the beginning, it was a little bit of a concern. I mean, you can't just brush it off like nothing happened. But over time, we are back to normal. Danforth is alive. It's here. We're here, waiting for everybody. Everybody has shown their support. They come from all over. Healing is always going to be here. It's always going to be, you see young people losing their lives or being paralyzed, or the whole life changed over one split of a second. I try to brush it off my head. When I think about it, I just, so I just not think of it too much.
Well, Chris, thank you for your time and talking to us.
Thank you.
It was a very good sense that alcohol is currently causing a large amount of health problems and problems in society in Ontario. I think what really surprised us was the extent that this has increased over time.
There's been a dramatic spike in the number of people admitted to emergency wards with drinking-related issues. The highest increase here in Ontario, women in their 20s. We'll bring you that story in just a few minutes. Ontario's Education Ministry is now accepting funding applications from school boards for any pressing renovation projects they may have.
The average age of elementary schools and secondary schools buildings in this province is 40 years old. Indeed, much older than your new Minister of Education. And there are schools in this province and this community that are in need of upgrades and repairs. And there are growing communities in need of new neighboring schools as well.
The government launched its Capital Priorities program today. Through the program, the government will fund new school buildings or renovations, all to be completed over the next 5 years. Funding could also help schools replace old heating and air conditioning systems, repair roofs and windows, and install important accessibility features. PC say the program will also provide funding for school-based childcare spaces. Well, a new report is calling on the province to allow hard liquor alongside beer and wine in corner stores. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce says Ontario needs to modernize the sale of alcohol, allowing it to become a more competitive market. Its other recommendations include lowering taxes on Ontario wines and giving customers more home delivery options. The way alcohol is sold in the province is changing significantly. The PCs have laid the groundwork to allow all grocery and convenience stores in Ontario to sell beer and wine. Well, those proposals come as new research shows some disturbing trends about alcohol use in Ontario. It found more young people are ending up in emergency rooms because of excessive alcohol use, and the numbers are especially high among young women. The figures come from a new study in the Canadian Medical Association Journal that looked at ER visits over a 14-year period. Julie Ireton has the details.
Bailey Reed now reaches for the tea or a soft drink even when she's out winding down with her friends. She gave up alcohol a couple years ago.
It was a big change for me to shift from this sort of party girl Bailey.
That's because in her 20s, Reed says her drinking led to binging and blackouts. She says she's not surprised by the research that shows more women in that age group are ending up in the ER.
There was so much marketing especially for women my age, about, you know, you need to have rosé all day and you need to drink mommy juice with your girlfriends and you can decompress over gin martinis.
There have been increases in binge or heavy drinking in men and women, but we're seeing a larger increase in women.
Dr. Myron says another disturbing trend he found was an increase in visits to the ER by underaged, teenaged girls.
We're worried that as they continue to age, these cohorts, that they'll keep drinking in these harmful patterns, into their 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Dr. Peter Tennisaputro also worked on the study. He says the increased accessibility of alcohol in Ontario grocery stores was part of the team's motivation for the study.
There are positives to making alcohol more available, but there's also downsides, right? There's also harms that can come out of that.
The study's scientists say down the road there may be a higher demand for support services to help young people who are high-risk alcohol drinkers. And they note as the Ontario government moves toward allowing the sale of beer and wine in corner stores, all Ontarians need to pay attention to this new data. Julie Ireton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Colette Kennedy is back with her extended forecast. Nice to have a bit of a breather from the humidity we had on the weekend.
Yeah, big change, right, in terms of the air mass that's been moving in and what we're experiencing now and what we will be for the next few days. So we're going to talk about that. But first, I just want to talk to you about a weather advisory that's been issued by Environment Canada for some funnel cloud development. Seems like a funnel cloud or two has been seen to the southeast of Brantford. And I was showing you earlier on the radar, and we'll take another look at it in a moment here, some of those showers and indeed a few cells that have kind of shown up on our radar. Now, what's happening with these funnel clouds, that tends to be something with pretty weak rotation, so it doesn't tend to touch the ground. That's why this is more of an advisory that you're going to see these, not to be too alarmed, which is not to say that it's not possible. Yes, could one touch down? Then we're into a totally different situation. But for now, looks like just a weather advisory, not anticipated. We just don't really have the conditions for that at the moment with these cells that we are seeing. And part of it, hey, that humidity sometimes help to fuel these things, and we've seen that just really decrease. And the temperatures too, average high 27.1, 23.1 unofficially, best we could do for a high today, and we're sitting at 21 now. And with the humidity, there's a little bit. Feels like mid-20s, really comfortable. It's going to be very comfortable through the overnight hours too. Closer look though at some of these cells that, as I said, we've been kind of tracking throughout the afternoon and now into the early evening and becoming a little more widespread here, just beginning to push down towards the 407, traveling to the south to southeast. We had a dose through Hamilton, more of that action possible. So around Caledon, Hamilton, Niagara, through these regions, you're part of this advisory area, Oxford, Brant, Orangeville area, just to name a few there, Waterloo, Wellington, in fact, as well. We get into this high pressure situation though, where we're generally going to be seeing clear skies overnight and sunshine through the days. It's going to hold for a few days for us as well. Only a very slim chance tomorrow afternoon of seeing a shower. Primarily, we are dry and looking good, comfortable. 13 to 14 sleeping weather there. Tomorrow, highs in the mid-20s. St. Catharines, you may get to 27. Only add a degree or two in terms of the humidity, just not much there. We don't really see that building again, Mike, until we get towards the end of this week and into the weekend. Temperatures going up, humidity coming back by the time, especially we get towards Saturday.
Okay, thanks, Colette.
No problem.
Marvel has introduced the studio's first ever Asian superhero, master of kung fu named Shang-Chi, and it's going to be portrayed by a Toronto actor, a familiar face to CBC viewers. Simu Liu is the star of Kim's Convenience. Yelena Adzik joins us now.
I know you are very excited.
I had a friend text me and say, "Oh my God, see the guy from Kim's Convenience was just cast." Fantastic news.
Oh, please,
for
that's
him.
a cover. You knew it already, a friend. Give me a break. Listen, I share your enthusiasm, as do many Torontonians, because this is a huge deal for this actor. He's done a lot of other roles too, but he really is mostly known for Kim's Convenience. And there you get a look at the poster with the full title, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So here you have a look at him in Kim's Convenience. And this is an actor who's now taking over this character, which really emerged in the comics in 1973. And let's be honest, at the time, both that character and the father's character had some serious issues around the way that the Asian community would have been portrayed, and these characters really fell to stereotypes. So that is obviously very much top of mind to correct this time around. Let's make it modern. Let's make it certainly improved. And we know that this is the first time that Marvel has chosen to have as a lead an Asian superhero. So what does he think about that? When he was cast, he gets up on stage at San Diego's Comic-Con and tells such a fun story. So have a listen to that.
I feel like I was like kind of this social experiment of like, let's just take this guy, the ordinary guy living in Toronto, let's tell him that he's gonna be in the next Marvel movie and give him like 4 days to prep for it. So literally, guys, I was cast on Tuesday. I screen tested on Sunday in New York, and this is just the craziest dream.
Love that story.
Obviously, a very good screen test. Yeah. And, you know, this is something that has people excited also because Awkwafina, who is a comedian from Crazy Rich Asians, she's going to be in this one too, veteran actor Tony Leung. So a lot of good people on board. And, you know, overall, we know that the studio head, Kevin Feige, he has said, listen, it's really important that I ramp up diversity overall. So this is really part of that move.
Yeah, and you saw that with the rest of the slate of the next several years of Marvel films coming forward as well.
Yeah, you did. Whether it's women at the front, Natalie Portman, for example. Now, she is back. She was already in Thor, but she's going to be returning as a kind of a female Thor, someone with Thor-like powers, shall we say. So that's something to look forward to. Another one, Angelina Jolie. She makes her Eternals debut, so I thought I'd show you some Salt because that's got a lot of action in it. And then also, Mahershala Ali. This is very exciting. He's going to star in the Blade reboot, so I thought I'd show you a little bit of Netflix's Luke Cage. This is an actor much beloved and taking over for Wesley Snipes. Yeah, so this is something.
Huge surprise when that came out. A lot of rumors. There's always rumors attached to what Marvel movies might be there. Blade, the reboot there, I think caught a lot of people by surprise.
Well, exactly. And so, you know, you think of female superheroes, an Asian American hero, or a black Captain America, for example, a female Thor, an LGBTQ character. This is something, again, they're trying to rectify something that has been going on for a long time, which is a very much a lack of diversity or a misrepresentation if there is various diversity shown.
And not just on camera, but also some of the production staff, the directors behind the scenes as well.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a huge deal. So we're not going to get to actually see the new movie, at least the Asian superhero, until 2021. We're going to have to wait till February, but somehow I think you're going to be able to make
Black Widow next year.
That wait. Yes, that's true.
Thanks a lot, Yelena.
See you soon, Mike.
Well, another Canadian star in the pool to tell you about. A stunning victory for London, Ontario swimmer Maggie McNeil today at the World Aquatic Championships. The 19-year-old knocked off three-time world champion and defending gold medalist Sarah Sjostrom to win the women's 100-meter butterfly. McNeil is just the second female Canadian swimmer to ever win a world title, and she posted a Canadian record time to boot. Congratulations to her. That's great. And with this weather, that's the place you want to be. In the pool
In the
recently,
pool,
yeah.
Anywhere you can stay wet, stay
Yes.
cool, that's how it's been. And now here we are, we're actually into an air mass where it's a little more comfortable. We can leave the windows open if you feel comfortable doing that, and turn that AC off, because we're seeing overnight lows like this, 13, 14 degrees for the overnight with clear skies, a light breeze out of the northwest. That makes it even more comfortable if you can get a little cross breeze going on. And then for tomorrow afternoon, well, most of the day we'll see sunshine, maybe a few clouds into the afternoon hours. As I've been pointing out, it's more towards the east or extreme southwestern Ontario. Better chance for a little afternoon or evening shower. I think we'll stay dry here. And 26, a very comfortable 26 for
Good,
the
nice
high.
and a good evening. Thanks, Colette.
Yeah.
That's our show for tonight. Talia Ricci has your next local news tonight at 11. Tune in for coverage of tonight's vigil to mark 1 year since the Danforth shooting. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 6. Good night.